So what are the limits of a president's authority? That is a central question for the judge overseeing the showdown between President Trump's deployment of the California National Guard and the state's governor. In closing arguments yesterday, the government says the federal law that restricts the use of the military for domestic law enforcement does not apply in this case. Attorneys for California say the government is engaged in unprecedented conduct. CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman continues to follow this case and joins us here on set this morning. Good morning, Katrina. The judge seemed to take issue with the arguments from the Justice Department. Help us understand what that was and what happened.
Yes, Errol, some of those arguments. So what the Justice Department was arguing was, for one, that there's no precedent here for this lawsuit. They also said that the law that was at the very center of this trial, Errol, doesn't apply because of the authority that President Trump used to bring in the National Guard. The other thing that they said is that this court doesn't have the ability or the authority to issue an injunction. That's what the state of California wants, is for these troops to be told that they have to leave California, for them to be prevented from being brought back in this same way. And when it comes to that, what the judge said is essentially the Justice Department was saying this would have to be brought as a criminal proceeding instead. And he pointed out that the Supreme Court made that ruling in the Trump case that there is presidential immunity. He said, isn't the president immune here? Essentially saying there would be no remedy available. And when it comes to the law that this trial was about, the Posse Comitatus law that we've talked about, it says the military cannot be used for domestic law enforcement. He said, if you don't think that applies, why did I hear all of this testimony from a major general who was the commanding general of the task force in Los Angeles about how they were aware of that law, how there were procedures and trainings to make sure that the troops were in compliance with that law? He said it certainly seems as though they were trying to comply with that law. And he also said to the lawyer, if you don't think it applies, why don't you just advise your client not to follow it?
That is remarkable, and you've been telling us about that specific law all week. A fascinating case to follow. Katrina, thank you.
Thank you.